3 statistical secrets that you need to know heading into the Dutch Grand Prix. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula 1 content. You can like and subscribe for more content like this. I'm Jay Jack, and let's go. The first statistical secret is the track. The Zandvoort circuit was last raced by Formula 1 in 1985. Okay, that's to put a great perspective in that. Not only has Formula 1 been so far removed from racing, that also they have new track upgrades and layout adjustments. And so the first thing you want to take into consideration is that the cars are very long and wide for this track compared to what they were in the 1980s. So this track is very similar to Monaco in that they're not going to have a lot of wheel-to-wheel, side-by-side racing unless it's in the specific passing zones. That also means that cars are going to potentially get cut out more as they're trying to make the apexes of the corners because there's a lot of gravel traps. It's actually interesting hearing the designer who helped adjust and modify the circuit. He said that the design team decided to make the track for drivers to make mistakes. Designing tracks for drivers to make mistakes means that they have to respect them and they're not just going to go flat out every corner. And that also means that you're going to get more on the edge racing where a difference of how you attack the corner or respect the corner can gain you your time. Which now rolls us into our second statistical secret, pace. Pace is going to be very important because there was not a lot of free practice 1 time. There was a problem with Sebastian Vettel's car, 37 minutes, no running. These are only hour sessions. Free practice session 2, 2 separate red flags. And so we have these drivers that are trying to push, but because of the stoppage, because of the gravel traps and cars running wide and getting stuck, imagine that this is going to happen in free practice session 3, qualifying and in the race. So you want to pick a driver that you do not think is going to make mistakes and get caught out in the gravel because their race will be done. This also means that we have to keep in mind traffic. You might have a really fast race car driver, but if he gets stuck in traffic, it's going to hamper his lap times, and you might get some drivers who normally would not be able to excel being able to get really fast lap times on this track. Notice in pre-practice session 2 how Russell was 20th. But from first to last was within 2 seconds, which means that this track has all the people bunched up together. Usually they're strung out a lot. To note, Hamilton had the fastest lap time in free practice 1, but because of a problem with his car in free practice session 2, he wasn't able to do much running. Ferrari set the fastest time on softs, with Leclerc at a 1 minute 10 second 0.9. Verstappen, however, set the fastest time on his mediums, which was only 0.3 seconds off. The commentators believe that the lap times going into qualifying will drop as quick as 1 minute 9. Now remember, race pace is usually 2 seconds off of that. So the fact that Leclerc and Sainz were in the high 1 minute 10s, low 1 minute 11s, goes to show that Ferrari, especially Alpine, have good race pace. This bodes bad then for someone like Perez, who was really off the pace of everyone else. And he usually relies on a fast race pace to be able to jump people in the pits. But if he gets stuck behind DRS trains, he won't be able to get that advantage. Now, if they're able to do something like they did in Monaco, Red Bull could potentially gain places with Perez. But Perez is probably going to suffer from not being able to qualify nearly as good as everybody else. This now brings us to our third statistical secret, the drivers. The big decision is going to be about who are you going to turbo. Norris, over the course of the season, has been the one turbo. McLaren hasn't had the best race pace going into free practice session 1 and 2, but remember there was a lot of stoppages. But it does come down to, do you want to risk it on Norris, or do you want to go with someone who seems like they're able to piece it together, like a Sainz or a Leclerc? And so that's where you want to look at free practice session 3. Who seems to be having the best quality pace? Free practice session 2 is usually race pace. The free practice session 3 is usually quali pace. And because this track does not have a lot of overtaking opportunities because of these large cars, imagine how they qualify is going to dictate how they're going to be predominantly during the race. And you might have a better race pace, but if you get stuck behind cars, you're going to lose a lot of time. It happened in Hungary, and that is a similar thing that we could see in this track. Ferrari had brought engine upgrades to the last race and weren't able to use them properly because of all the rain. Now we start seeing Ferrari with their engine upgrades and how that impacts on a dry surface. Now this track is similar to Monaco or Belgium in that you don't have these huge areas where Ferrari is going to have a problem with their aerodynamics and balancing. And because they have these slow to medium corners where Ferrari excels, that is why you see Sainz and Leclerc doing really well. That could translate into them having really strong race day results as well. And here's my value pick, Alpine. For the constructor, I would only recommend you pick up the constructor if you don't think that Perez is going to be anywhere on race day, or that you think that Ferrari might have a mess up. Alpine could potentially give you the cap space to pick up a Hamilton and Verstappen combo and have some good drivers because of Alpine being cheaper than Ferrari. But let's talk about the drivers. Ocon was very strong. He had the first 5 races of the season. He got his race streak. Then Alonso had really good 5 races and got his race streak. And now we're seeing both Alpine drivers, Alonso and Ocon, having good results. For free practice 1, Alonso was faster than Ocon by 0.2 of a second. Free practice 2, Ocon was faster than Alonso by 1/10 of a second. So these two are pretty close, and it'll go down to who you think is going to perform best for qualifying after watching free practice session 3. Now remember, Ocon is cheaper than Alonso. That difference in cap space could give you the opportunity to upgrade one of your other driver spots. It's now time for my picks. Now, because of all the unknowns and the lack of race time in free practice session 1 and 2, you might be having very similar questions and debates that I am as it pertains to your lineup. So comment in this video. Let me know. Who are you thinking? What is your perspective? You can also follow us on Twitter at Relsick Racing. It'll show up as the Pitwall to see our discussion going into this race weekend. But also, if you want to be a part of the discussion on Reddit, r/FantasyF1. I'm pretty active on there as well. But let's get to my picks. Team 1 follows one principle: ride the averages. I try not to make more than 2 substitutions every single race weekend. Team 2, on the other hand, is my day trading team, in which I try to get a value as high as possible. So just to compare, Team 1, where I try to make minimal substitutions, I have a 105.4. With my day trading team, I have a 107.3, so nearly 2 million off. But as you can see, Team 1 has outperformed Team 2, and that goes to show the benefit of trying to keep consistent teams. Now, there's a caveat. I used for the last 2 races wildcards. The first one for the first half of the season, and then the first race for this second half of the season, I used a wildcard. And that made the difference actually for Team 1 because it saved some of the losses. For Team 1, I am thinking of switching out Perez. Either thinking about picking up Leclerc or Sainz, and let's see what we can play with. If I get rid of Perez and I pick up Leclerc, that's a 4.9 million. As you can see, he has 208 points. But if I were to pick up Sainz, who has 220 points, then I get 8 million value. And that is clearly enough of a difference to be able to have someone different. Now it's Team 2, a very similar situation. I am thinking about dropping Alonso, picking up Ocon for a little bit more money, but as you can see, I kind of have the best lineup for this weekend, and so maybe I don't need to do that, and I'll just run the variant strategy. But Ocon has been seeming to do better than Alonso, but you gotta check free practice session 3. But let's see. Keep the Sainz, get rid of the Norris, get rid of Alonso, get rid of Red Bull. That's 3 substitutions. I could pick up an Alpine, I could pick up a Hamilton, and then I could pick up an Ocon. And I still have 3 million in cap space. So this goes to show that there are ways for me to try to get the 2 strongest drivers on a track where qualifying is going to make a big difference. Like I said, watch free practice session 3 and we'll find out. And there you have it, 3 statistical secrets. Even though we don't have a lot of information on Zandvoort, these are some things to give you ideas of what to look for heading into this race weekend. Here's one last thing I want to leave you with. Do not underestimate the power of the gravel traps around the circuit, because that combined with the narrow track and traffic with a short lap time is going to give a lot of unpredictable results. You will notice that everyone thought around race 5 in Monaco to race 7 that it was so predictable. Everyone was running the same teams. It does not have any options. But if you go and look to see how the last few races have shook up, who is actually doing well, you can see that it's very unpredictable. And so some of this that you will say is the best potential option might all get thrown away during qualifying. It might get thrown away during the race. But make sure to keep this thing in mind. Have fun. And until next time, I'll see you on the pit wall.